Stand by for terminal count.
Overlook Horizon High Altitude Balloons, an Ontario County nonprofit.
This is no ordinary balloon.
What a view!
Over 110,000 feet.
This is incredible.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. Welcome to the Iridium-5 launch this morning. It's been a little while since we've had a SpaceX launch, but today we're kicking off a whole campaign, a whole slew of launches coming up for the month of April. Starting off today, obviously we're still in March, but I'm including this one in there because it's a whole 6 launches here in a short time period. So pretty excited to get started with this whole campaign that SpaceX is getting geared up for today. So it starts today with the Iridium-5 launch. If you're looking on YouTube, apparently my description says the Hispasat launch. That's what happens when you quickly create the live event. Just reuse the settings, forgot to update the description. But this is the Iridium-5 launch. If you're watching after the fact, I'll have this description updated. But this is the Iridium-5 launch that will be launching from Vandenberg Air Force Base on the West Coast this morning at 10:13 a.m. Eastern Time and 7:13 a.m. Pacific Time. So a nice early morning launch, not too early, but early enough where hopefully if you're on the West Coast, you'll be up in time to take a peek out and maybe you can get to see it. For us on the East Coast, obviously we're out of luck, but we'll still watch along here. We'll check it out on the SpaceX live stream, which I got here up in the top corner here. Once that gets started, usually about 15 to 20 minutes before launch is when SpaceX will start their live broadcast. And we'll listen in, see what they got to say, do some commenting, watch the launch, and call it a day. So, but before we get that far, I mean, let's talk about what today's launch entails. So we talked about the Iridium-5. Iridium-5 is a satellite constellation. So this is the Iridium NEXT constellation, which is basically replacing an existing constellation, but it's huge. It's replacing, I forget what the number is. I was just trying to look to see how many, where is it? I had it here somewhere, but they're deploying 75 total satellites, not today, but 75 total satellites. SpaceX is launching 75 total satellites. The whole entire constellation is 81 total satellites. So SpaceX, good for them. They're doing 75 of the 81 Iridium NEXT satellites, and they're replacing basically one by one while they're doing them in batches. This is a set of 10 Iridium satellites that they're going to be launching as part of this launch today, and they're replacing an existing constellation. I forget what that's called, the existing one. I don't know if I have it here. Nope, I don't know if I have it. But anyways, the Iridium constellation does a whole host of communication stuff. So you're talking government, aviation is a big one. Government organizations, they have some maritime or uses as well. But one of the things that I think was kind of exciting for me, because I follow along with this a lot, is, and it's not going to be available to me, but I still find it exciting, is that for providers that pay for it, that pay for the service, the Iridium NEXT constellation is going to provide real-time global visibility for the ADS-B positioning, I don't know, map, I guess is what you call it, but the positioning locations of aircraft. So ADS-B, let's see, I forget what that stands for, but that is the, I think it's like automatic data something or another, but it's basically the positioning reports of aircraft, and they're currently using those. So if you go on like FlightAware or Flight Radar 24, or a whole bunch of different services, and you're looking at aircraft positions that are out there, a lot of those are getting reported from ADS-B reports and then getting posted up on these websites like FlightAware and things like that. We actually have here, we've got a antenna up on the roof that receives those ADS-B signals and also helps report those. So we actually do reporting to FlightAware and Flight Radar 24. There's another one that we do too, but I can't remember the name of it. I think there's like 3 big ones. FlightAware is the biggest. Flight Radar 24 is another one. But you see all these aircraft positions, and we're one of the contributors to that. But this Iridium constellation is kind of exciting because it will allow right now, the way that ADS-B reporting works is, these either air traffic control towers have to be within range of those radio signals, or for the amateur ones, the ones that are posted on flight radar and things like that, they rely on people like me or anybody else that's out there to receive these signals and report them up on the website. But with the Iridium constellation, or the Iridium NEXT, they're looking at global visibility that will communicate by satellite, so you wouldn't have to worry about being within range of that signal. So you'd have those really underpopulated spots, especially like over the ocean or things like that. You'd have live positioning reports from those ADS-B signals. So I think it's kind of exciting. But so anyway, in addition to that, so the satellites itself, we've also got today's booster is a reused booster. So this is a refurbished stage from another Iridium constellation satellite launch. And this is not going to be recovered today. So this is a Block 4 booster. They're actually trying to dispose of they got too many at the moment. So they're trying to dispose of these Block 4 boosters, getting geared up for Block 5, the final, I shouldn't say final, but I guess the big iteration will be the Block 5, because that's the one that's eventually going to be locked in with no further upgrades in order to receive what am I trying to say? Trying to receive the NASA okay in order to launch national security payloads. That's what I'm trying to say, national security payloads. So, oh, there we go. Somebody, ADS-B, automatic dependent surveillance broadcast. There we go. So there we go. That's what the ADS-B stands for. So what else was I going to say? Oh, today, so we're on the West Coast today. Typical of West Coast launches, this is going into polar orbit. So it's 86 degree inclination, which is almost directly pole to pole. So a 90 degree inclination would be pole to pole directly over. So we're pretty much directly polar orbit. So that's why we're doing it over the West Coast today. Typically, the East Coast at Kennedy Space Center or the Space Coast is going for eastern inclinations, either equatorial orbits or slightly inclined, 20, 40 degrees, some maybe even 60 degrees. I forget I don't have the limits of what the eastern range is, but there's a window there for the eastern range that they go, they can't do polar orbits from the eastern range just because there's too much population there. They'd have to fly over land, and we've seen that with some of the Chinese rockets that have been launching, and it hasn't been going well. So it's a good thing that we don't launch over land. So that's why we like to stay on the coast. So SpaceX has two launch facilities. The East Coast, it does, like I said, those equatorial orbits or slightly inclined orbits that are heading, northeast, east, southeast. And then the West Coast is either for polar orbits, or they can even go retrograde. That doesn't happen very often because it's expensive, but they can even do retrograde orbits from the West Coast. So hey, Deborah, thanks for the tip. Appreciate it. Hashtag Space Lobster. Yeah, if you're following along, if you want to join the conversation on Twitter, send us a hashtag Space Lobster. We take a look at them all afterwards. You guys, during the Falcon Heavy launch, you guys sent me some fantastic photos that I still have tons of them saved. I'm going to start putting them out once we get into. We've started getting into our flights, but we haven't done our Space Lobster flight yet. That's coming up probably May time period. So I'm saving those pictures you send me with the hashtag Space Lobster. We're gonna send those out again and revisit the hashtag Space Lobster when that guy flies on our flights coming up in probably May time period. So we're 21 minutes out from the SpaceX launch. They'll start their broadcast pretty soon. Just through a couple things that I have here on our end that I do want to share. So here, hopefully, there we go. Make sure everything's still working here. Here's a mission patch for today, showing our Falcon 9 reuse booster there and the Iridium-5 satellites. Couple quick facts about today's flight. So this is going to be the 57th SpaceX launch. It's the 51st of the Falcon 9 launch. The other 6 launches being 5 Falcon 1 launches that were early on in SpaceX history, and then the 1 Falcon Heavy launch. So that brings us to the 57 SpaceX launches. This is the 9th SpaceX launch from the West Coast, 6th for SpaceX this year, the 5th Falcon 9 launch, 5th Falcon 9 launch for this year, the 6th being the Falcon Heavy. And then this is the 10th reflight of an orbital class booster as well. So looks like they're gearing up for their broadcast. They used to do them. They used to always start 15 minutes prior, but they've been doing 20 minutes recently, which I'm perfectly okay with. So I do see your comments. I'm going to get to a lot of those, but I'm running out of time here to make sure I show you what I've got here. So this is our timeline for today. A lot of the top portion is the pre-flight stuff, which we've gone through. Everything's on track here, which is also indicative here by the SpaceX broadcast. They usually don't start unless we're on track. So, but propellant's being loaded, liquid oxygen was being loaded. So now we're just getting into the final stages of countdown here. But we're looking at launch, max Q, just over a minute into the flight. We'll have the first stage cut off. No recovery for the first stage, but they probably will do a boost back burn. They've got landing legs, grid fins, so they probably will do the boost back burn and go through the whole process just for data collection and testing purposes, but this will be an expended flight. And then we're also, the Mr. Steven boat is out on the water here. We probably won't see that during the broadcast, but our Mr. Steven boat, in case you're not familiar, looks like this. Got a big upside down claw on it with a net, and that's intended to catch the payload when that, or I'm sorry, not the payload, that'd be interesting. The payload fairing, which is what protects the payload, it's going to catch the payload fairing on re-entry. They tried this once before, but they were unsuccessful, landed a couple hundred meters away from the boat. So basically this thing, the payload fairing, which, let's see, I've got it here, which is the upper portion here, the nose cone, if you will, that protects the payload. That's going to separate and jettison, and it's going to return. Comes under parachute, basically this big parafoil here, and the idea is, I guess, I have yet to see this. I want to see this, but I don't think they're going to show it today. But the idea is that the Mr. Steven boat is going to drive underneath this parachute and catch it on the back with that giant claw. That's crazy to me. I really want to see it. They didn't show it to us last time. All we saw were a couple pictures afterwards, but maybe they'll show it today. I don't think so, but yeah, so we're about 20 minutes away here, just under 20 minutes from launch here. Let me take a look at some comments. Or did I have anything else I wanted to show? No, these are all okay. Let me take a look at some of your comments here. They're all flying in, and I can't try to see if I can get to them quick before they start the broadcast. So Gregorius, he gave me a little heads up about my YouTube description that still says Hispasat. I will change that. Thanks for that. It wasn't even on my radar, but I appreciate that. Let's see. Jason, time for some interstellar crustaceans to infect the inner tubes. That's awesome. A hashtag space lobster reference. Let's see. Fun fact, first stage was reused from an Iridium-3 mission in October 2017. Right, yeah, this is a reused first stage booster here. So let's see. How long do we have still? We're about, well, the countdown's gone now, but it will come up once they start. But at 10:13 a.m. Eastern time, you guys are on, like, for my testing, YouTube has like a 20-minute delay between when I talk and when you see it. Or not 20-minute, 20-second delay. So based on when I'm talking right now, we got about, what's that, 17 minutes here or so. So at 10:13 Eastern, 7:13 Pacific. Space launch now says 23:20 till, assuming that's the countdown, 23 minutes. Let's see, what else? Do you plan to send any other creatures into space? For us, it's probably just going to be the Space Lobster. Really depends on how successful things go with the Space Lobster. We do intend to do more flights for us, our high-altitude weather balloon flights. We're trying to do more this year. We're off to a rough start. The first one we lost, but it was still a great flight. We got a lot of data from it. But we'll see how the second one goes, and then the Space Lobster will be about the third or fourth flight for us this year. So let's see. Yeah, you're gonna need to get you a Space Lobster logo here pretty soon. I know, right? We're gonna have to update our logo to get a lobster in there at some point. First lobster to go into space, Astro Lobster. Yes. What will be the next thing launched on the Falcon Heavy? So the Falcon Heavy is launching the next one that's coming up in June. There's a whole host of satellites going on there. There's some student satellites that are going on there, and there are also some low, not low priority, but low, whatever the tiers are that they specify for basically how valuable the flights are, being like the James Webb Telescope, which is super crazy expensive. That's like priority level 1. They don't want to lose that thing. They're not going to put that on board a Falcon Heavy. They do some of the, the second flight of the Falcon Heavy, they're doing some lower level, less valuable payloads that if they get lost, it would be a bummer, but not crazy upsetting. Let's see. Mr. Stephen Boat, round 2. Yes, he is out there. And if anybody looked at the maritime logs, SpaceX filed the destination port, or somebody, whoever put it out there. I don't know if that's SpaceX that does it, but you can look at the maritime logs and tracking. I don't remember the website. I have it saved here somewhere, but to track where boats are and things like that out in the ocean. And they put the destination port as your mom's house, is what they said, leaving the port of Los Angeles, heading to your mom's house. I don't know who put that in, but I thought it was funny. Let's see. Yeah, the protective shroud, just talking about the payload fairing. Yeah, protective shroud that protects the payload. Liquid oxygen now confirmed loading. Let's see. Yeah, somebody says James Webb was contracted to the James Webb Space Telescope, which just got bumped again, unfortunately, is contracted to Ariane Space. It's going to fly on board an Iridium-5 in the spring, it sounds like, of 2020, or was it 2019? Pretty sure it's 2020, but looks like they're getting started here. We're in the UK, which is GMT, 1 hour ahead of UTC time. 2:56 p.m. here. Oh, good. That's Space TV. You're going to show the launch as well. Yeah, we're going to show this launch. I'm assuming that's the one you're talking about. Let's see. Put wings on the camera from the weather balloon, glide it back to base. We would love to do something like that. But let's see. Let me get the screen up here.
Good morning from Hawthorne, California. It's March 30th at just about 7 a.m. Pacific time. Welcome to the webcast of the Iridium-5 mission carrying the fifth flight of 10 Iridium NEXT satellites. You are seeing a live view of Falcon 9 beautifully framed by a rosy dawn as we prepare for launch in just over 10 minutes from now. Today's launch is scheduled for 2:13 Universal Coordinated Time, or 7:13 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I'm Michael Hammersley, a materials engineer here at SpaceX, and I'll be bringing you coverage of the SpaceX launch for Iridium NEXT during this webcast. Due to some restrictions from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA for short, SpaceX will be intentionally ending live video coverage of the second stage just prior to engine shutdown. We're working with NOAA to address these restrictions in order to hopefully be able to bring you live views from orbit in the future. And though we'll be ending the video coverage, we'll be continuing to cover the major mission milestones on Twitter, so please join us there afterward.
Wonder what those restrictions are. That's kind of strange. But yeah, it sounds like they're going to end coverage early before the second stage cutoff. So we kind of flew through it, but that timeline that I showed, the actual payload deployment wasn't until about an hour after launch. So it sounds like we're not going to see that today, but we'll have some updates on Twitter once we get confirmation of the payload.
Today's
deployment.
launch is from Space Launch Complex 4 at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And you can see the two-stage Falcon 9 vehicle standing about 70 meters tall, which is taller than a 20-story building, there on the pad just after sunrise. It's a really clear shot. Usually Vandenberg is way foggier than this, so it's a beautiful, beautiful view here. The first stage, which is the part that's not currently illuminated by sun, provides the initial force to get out of the majority of Earth's atmosphere. SpaceX does not plan to recover the first stage for this mission. We will be performing a landing sequence, a simulated landing sequence out in the Pacific Ocean, but there's no drone ship in position for recovery. So we won't be following it during the webcast, but you may hear call-outs on the countdown net while we follow the second stage into orbit. The second stage, which is the part in the sun right now, takes the satellite from the edge of space and accelerates it to orbital speeds of just over 7.5 kilometers per second, or 17,000 miles per hour. That's 10 times faster than a bullet. On the very top of the vehicle, in the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, are the 10 Iridium satellites. For this mission, we will be attempting to recover 1/2 of the payload fairing as part of our ongoing fairing recovery efforts. The ultimate goal is full recovery and reuse of the entire vehicle. So recovering the fairing is an important step towards that goal. It's still part of an experimental program at the moment. Just to the right of the rocket is the transporter erector. That's what brings the vehicle out from the hangar, horizontal, and then tips it vertical to get it into position. It's going to recline to 77.5 degrees a few minutes before launch, unlike our East Coast pad, which retracts a little bit just at the very last second.
Yeah, so one thing that he did mention that I think a lot of people miss is this Mr. Steven payload fairing recovery right now is just half of it. They're only worrying about 1/2 of the payload fairing. They're not trying to recover both halves right now. Just 1/2 of it is the experimental portion.
Quick status report. Falcon 9 has been loading propellants since about T-minus 70 minutes. Fuel, that's the kerosene, is about complete on the first and the second stage at the moment. Falcon 9 burns a rocket-grade kerosene to get to orbit. But because you need oxygen to burn kerosene, and there's not much oxygen high up in the atmosphere, we have to take our oxygen with us. So we carry a super-chilled liquid oxygen in the tanks. That liquid oxygen is currently being loaded. The first stage is about 90% filled, and the second stage is about 60% filled right now. We'll be continuing to load those until just the last couple minutes before launch in order to keep that as cold as possible, in order to make it as dense as possible to fit as much on the vehicle as possible.
Yeah, so I do think it's
the
kind of...
Iridium satellites are currently a go and are on internal power. The Western Range is also a go. The Western Range operating out of Vandenberg, but providing similar support as the Eastern Range during our Florida launches. And the weather, as you can see, is currently looking spectacular. Barely a cloud in sight, but we are keeping an eye on some upper-level winds to ensure that they don't present a danger to the vehicle during ascent.
The upper-level winds, they'll be sending weather balloons up to catch those upper-level winds and see what they're, see how they're measuring. So they do multiple weather balloon flights ahead of time to try to measure those upper-level winds and make sure that they're safe and actually get a wind shear measurement, especially making sure that they don't have drastic changes in wind direction at those upper levels, especially when the rocket's under the most stress.
SpaceX is launching 10 Iridium NEXT satellites to low Earth orbit today. And this is the 5th of 8 launches to put that constellation into orbit. We started launching with Iridium in 2017, and after this launch, we will have put 50 of the Iridium NEXT satellites into those orbits. These satellites form a constellation comprised of 6 polar orbiting planes, each plane containing 11 operational cross-linked satellites. So you can see in the image on your screen that a polar orbit means that each satellite is going to cross over the North and the South Pole every time it rotates the Earth. This is opposed to if it were an equatorial orbit, it would be going east to west or west to east, sort of around the equator. When completed, the Iridium network will be using a total of 66 active satellites, as well as 9 in-orbit spares. Each of those satellites weighs about 600 kilograms, and when the solar arrays are fully deployed, they have a wingspan of just over 9 meters. In order to correctly position those satellites into today's orbits, the SpaceX team has to launch right on time. So the launch window is only 1 second long, and if we delay for any reason, we have a backup opportunity at about the same time tomorrow morning.
So that obviously that map...
When Falcon 9 reaches its intended orbit, the vehicle will send commands to separate the satellites at about 625 kilometers in altitude. The satellites will be released one at a time, about every 100 seconds. The entire sequence will take 15 minutes, and from there, the satellites will maneuver to their final orbits. We have a quick video from Matt Desch of Iridium explaining some of the unique features of the Iridium system.
Remind me to come back to the map that they showed on the Iridium constellations, because I did want to say something on that, but I don't want to talk over this because I don't want you to miss anything. So when they get done with the video, we'll watch this and then we'll maybe talk about the map we have trouble.
Did you
maybe
know
after launch.
Right now there are 3.8 billion people connected to the internet, which is nothing compared to the nearly 20 billion things connected to the internet. Not those things, these things. Small things, medium things, large things, and by 2025, that number may grow to 75 billion things. Stack those things, and you could reach the moon 3 times. But did you know reliable internet to connect your things is not available on 80% of the planet? So on most of the planet, these things are out of reach. Did you know Iridium low Earth orbit satellites provide reliable internet connectivity to the entire globe, bringing everything within reach, no matter where it is on the planet?
Iridium is the satellite way to connect things to each other. Through a small little data modem embedded in all kinds of vehicles and devices and machines, we can make an internet connection to say where something is and how it's operating, and in fact send commands to turn it on or off or control it.
Did you know nearly 1 million subscribers are already using the Iridium network to track, control, and monitor farming equipment, fish tracking buoys, remote construction, wind farms, pipelines, global fleets, scientific research, worker safety, and millions of other things?
We're going to bring new technologies, faster speeds, easier to integrate technologies so you can put them into new services and applications much more easily than ever before. These new satellites, with all their capacity, power, and speed, are going to be able to turbocharge everything we do and bring so much more.
We're at about T-minus 4.5 minutes to launch, and we've got only a few things left to do at this point. Engine chill began at about T-minus 6 minutes. That gets the engines to a cold enough temperature where the liquid oxygen doesn't turn into a gas immediately upon contact, which would make startup a bit tricky. The strong back is going to begin its lean back shortly. We're currently finishing up propellant loading and pressurizing the tanks to make sure they can support the mass of the fully loaded vehicle. That propellant loading is going to continue for another couple minutes still to keep it all as cold as possible. We'll also be performing an engine wiggle. That's testing the thrust vector control system that steers the engine during its ascent. You may also see a vent of gaseous oxygen from the strong back inside of about T-minus 90 seconds. And you can see the strong back is beginning its retraction at the moment, leaning back slowly there. It's going to continue until it gets to about 77.5 degrees. At T-minus 1 minute, the vehicle will transition to internal power, and from there it will completely control the remainder of the countdown. The satellites are all still go, the range is also go, and the weather is looking great. If you hear the hold call, backup launch window is tomorrow at 7:14 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Otherwise, the SpaceX team is excited for launch, so let's listen in to the last couple minutes of terminal count.
It's interesting that he talked about the hold call out. I wonder if he knows something that we don't. Is he expecting that to happen, or was he just throwing it out there just as an FYI? But hopefully they don't scrub it, especially
Stage 1 LOX is closed out for flight.
But yeah, so looking at that map, one of the things that I thought was kind of crazy, I mean, it's not to scale, but all those satellites meet at the
Stromback retract is complete. The Stromback is locked out for flight.
There's got to be a little bit of coordination to make sure we don't have an incident up there at the poles when all those satellites are coming together. But probably not a huge issue because you got tons of space up there. I just thought it was interesting on the graphic because it looked like they were all coming together and going to crash into each other. But obviously, it's not to scale. But still thought it was kind of interesting.
Rock, verify range is green.
Rock, range is green.
Range is still go, so we're in good shape here. Under 2 minutes now.
Stage 2 LOX is closed off for flight. Vehicles in self-line.
That's the liquid oxygen there.
Gas closouts are started.
That's normal, not a big issue, but kind of cool to see that big stream coming off the strong back there.
ASTS is ready for launch.
Here we go, under a minute.
Falcon 9 in startup.
So steampunky, Gregorius
Ground-side
says.
gas closeouts complete. Stage 1 tanks pressing for flight.
This is the LD on countdown 1. We are go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Propellant tanks press for flight.
15.
See if you can see the green flash at the engine right before ignition.
10,
that's the T-tab.
9, 8,
Your
7,
brief green flash.
6, 5, 4, 3,
there it
2,
is.
1.
Ignition.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Very quiet today. Usually, a lot of times those launches are super loud. You blow out your eardrums if you're wearing earbuds. Quiet today, though. Not broadcasting the sound, I guess. Or at least not as much of it.
Power and telemetry are nominal.
And we had successful liftoff of the Falcon 9. As you saw, it's pitching downrange at the moment to continue its ascent into orbit. Going supersonic right about now.
Camera operators having trouble tracking.
Going through max Q shortly.
Vehicle is supersonic.
So we're decreasing the engine thrust to minimize the pressures of max Q, which is the point at which the rocket is pushing hardest against the atmosphere.
Vehicle is experiencing maximum dynamic pressure.
First stage cutoffs at about 234 is what we're expecting. First stage.
Now that we're
cutoff.
through that milestone, we'll be increasing the thrust of the engines in order to get to orbit. But while the atmosphere is still relatively thick, we can prevent it from exerting too much pressure on the fairing by throttling the engines a little bit.
Look at that thing go. I love that view. You get in the upper atmosphere and the engine plume just kind of spreads out.
Chilling the Merlin vacuum engine.
Vac engine chill has begun.
And that call out means that we're bringing the engines down to the correct temperatures in order to prevent the liquid oxygen from turning into a gas in the second stage as well. Coming up shortly, we have a few events in quick succession. The first stage main engines will cut off. The two stages will separate.
About 10
and
seconds.
The second stage will begin its first burn.
It should be cut off. Yeah, right there, right on time. Separation. There we go. And watch the main engine bell. You see a little ring break off of it. The stiffeners. There it goes, right there.
Head back ignition.
The engine bell stiffeners, they break off when the upper stage starts up.
And there you saw it. The first stage, main engines cut off, the two stages separated, and the second stage began its burn. You can actually see the first stage falling away behind the second stage for some of these shots.
Fairing deployment.
That's gorgeous.
It's supposed to be 3:28, so that's coming up here in about 10 more seconds here.
The first stage will be performing a
cool.
one-engine boost back burn and continuing downrange for a simulated landing.
Fairing deployment.
And you just saw the...
Oh, you can see it in the background there. Look at that.
Stage trajectory
cool.
nominal.
Just saw the two halves of the fairing fall away.
Good from deploy.
We will be attempting a recovery of one of the halves of the fairing today on our fairing recovery ship, Mr. Steven, as part of an experimental program to reuse those parts of the vehicle. We're just past T+4 minutes. The Merlin vacuum engine is performing nominally, blowing red hot there in the vacuum of space.
So the second stage cutoff, there's actually two burns for the second stage. We're in the first burn, obviously. That first cutoff, which is SECO 1, is supposed to be at 9 minutes and 2 seconds.
A quick reminder, we will be intentionally ending live coverage, or live video coverage of today's mission due to restrictions placed on us by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So don't be surprised when that occurs at about T+9 minutes.
Okay, so that was going to be my question.
We will be continuing to cover the mission on Twitter all the way through the second burn and deployment of the satellites at about T+50 minutes.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question. I didn't know, that they got SECO 1 and SECO 2 when they said earlier that they were going to end the broadcast early because of this NOAA restriction, which I don't understand.
T+5 minutes.
I didn't know if that was the 9-minute one
nominally,
or the one
the trajectory is currently looking good.
Yeah, and I don't quite understand that NOAA restriction. I don't understand what they have to do with the live broadcast being shown. Doesn't make sense to me. If anybody knows an answer to that, definitely let me know. But yeah, so the next...
A couple interesting facts about the first stage as it's continuing its simulated landing. This one first flew for the Iridium-3 mission, and the Iridium-2 and Iridium-4 missions also used the same rocket, which means that today this is our 5th launch for the Iridium constellation using only 3 rockets.
That's pretty awesome. That's where SpaceX is gonna save the money.
We're now at T+6 minutes, which puts us more or less exactly halfway through the second stage's first burn. The first burn is to bring the second stage into a parking orbit. That's going to be an egg-shaped orbit where the maximum altitude at the top of the egg is about 625 kilometers. But at the bottom of the egg, the orbit is only 180 kilometers in altitude. The second burn that we'll be performing is going to circularize that orbit so that it's 625 kilometers in altitude the whole way round.
I'm sure all the Kerbal Space players know exactly how that all works. Yeah, so it looks like they're going to end the broadcast at like 9 minutes, and then we'll stick around for a little while because I do have a couple other things that I want to talk about, at least in regards to this, whether they show it or not. Maybe we'll get some updates on Twitter while we're chatting along.
T+7 minutes.
Stage 1 AFTSS saved.
The chamber pressure in the Merlin vacuum engine is looking good, providing good power, constant chamber pressure, and still on track to its parking orbit.
So we heard a call out for stage 1 AFTS safe.
Between the end of the first burn and the start of the second burn, there's going to be about a 42-minute coast phase in order to position the second stage to prep for circularizing that orbit. We will be continuing that coverage on Twitter.
AFTS that I was mentioning, that's the automatic flight
stage
termination
1,
system.
Vandenberg expected.
Missed that call out. I was talking. I don't know what he said.
At the time of the second stage, the satellite will have passed over Antarctica and will be just south of Madagascar for that 4-second burn. Now just past T plus 8 minutes. Second stage still performing nominally. Still on track for that parking orbit.
And they'll be ending that broadcast here probably in the next 30 seconds. Imagine it'll be abrupt.
Today is also the 1-year anniversary of the first time we flew a flight probe in
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Falcon 9 first stage.
Stage 2 AFTSS saved.
That was a stage 2 AFTS. And clapping. Mr. Steven, did he catch it? I don't know what that clapping is.
We're at about a few seconds now from...
And some laughing, I hear.
The second stage completing its first burn. And we'll make sure that the burn is good.
Western range assets expected.
We have SECO.
We just got confirmation that the second engine cutoff event occurred. We'll make sure that we are in the correct orbit.
I'm sure somebody's talking to him in his ear. Trying to listen.
Stage 2 nominal insertion.
And we're getting confirmation that we did in fact get into the correct parking orbit. So though we're ending our live coverage now due to restrictions from NOAA, the mission is not yet over, so we'll be continuing to cover the upcoming major milestones on Twitter. That includes the 4-second engine burn and the 10 satellite deployments, starting about 40 minutes from now. So overall, we've had an on-time launch. The first stage successfully got the second stage out of the atmosphere, and the second stage is continuing on its trajectory in a coast phase now to get the Iridium NEXT satellites into their constellation. So thanks to the Iridium NEXT customer, Air Force for range support, and the FAA for launch license, and see you online for the rest of the mission.
All right, well, I guess that's it. So that's the end of their broadcast. But we'll chat on for a little while longer because I do want to talk about some of the stuff that they had on there. I mean, the first thing that's strange to me, why do we have to end the broadcast for this NOAA restriction? Somebody mentioned, are they going to be getting close to a NOAA satellite that's in polar orbit? I don't know, maybe. That could be. It'd be nice if they gave us a little more info on that. But that's kind of strange that NOAA was specifically putting in a restriction that said we don't want you broadcasting the views from this flight after a certain point. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know what's going on there. We did hear a whole bunch of cheers and clapping going on. I don't know if that's Mr. Steven. Maybe Mr. Steven caught it. Not sure. It'd be kind of cool. I haven't seen anything yet in terms of announcements on Twitter, but yeah, so it looks like it got into a good parking orbit. That's kind of the initial orbit that it gets into, and then there'll be a 4-second burn. Once that gets into its to apogee, it will burn for 4 seconds to circularize that orbit and get the whole thing in a nice round circle around the poles. So it looks like it's in good shape. Successful launch for SpaceX. They still got more to do. So they ended at about 9-minute mark. The second, so there's like a 40-minute coast phase, if you heard him mention that, because the second stage is going to light up again at the 52-minute mark, and then that only runs for about, well, he said 4 seconds. The official mission timeline, which I can show you what I'm looking at here. Let's see, where is my timeline? So I'm not sure if you can read this, but the official mission timeline from the press kit from SpaceX says that it's an 11-second burn. So, maybe there's some leeway in there for the engine to get up to full thrust, and then they count the 4 seconds. I'm not sure, but it's all happening at the 52-minute mark. Then at 57 minutes is when they're going to start deployment of the Iridium NEXT satellites. They got 10 total, 100-second gap in between each one, so just under 2 minutes there, and they're doing 10 of them. So that'll take some time, about 15 minutes to deploy all those satellites there. So anyways, that's what's going on. The big thing I really want to find out about, it's a shame that they don't mention it in the broadcast or they don't show it. I'd love for them to show it or at least mention it or something, but I want to know what happened with this Mr. Steven boat, because this is still a crazy concept to me. That's my big question here so far, is to see what's happening here. So there were a whole bunch of comments that came in. Let me see if I can go back and take a look at them. Because we go all the way back. We missed a whole bunch because we had to start listening on the broadcast. But yeah, Tyler said, should look awesome. The sun is so low here in Southern California. That's pretty awesome. It was a bright and early launch, 7 o'clock in the morning. If anybody saw it, send me some pictures. I want to see those. So send them to me at OLHCN on Twitter. If you're on the West Coast and you actually saw this in person, that'd be pretty sweet to see. So somebody asked how far low Earth orbit is. So low Earth orbit is anything that's under 2,000 kilometers, which is about 1,200 miles. So anything under 1,200 miles, 2,000 kilometers is considered low Earth orbit. It's got to be above, what is it, like 100 miles, 160 kilometers. That's the altitude it has to get at in order to stay in orbit. So basically between 100 and 1,200 miles, 100 to 1,200 miles, 160 to 2,000 kilometers. That's your low Earth orbit there, which is where this is heading. This is low Earth orbit, and it's polar orbit. So it's 86 degrees inclination, which basically 0 degrees is directly over the equator, 90 degrees is directly over the pole, so this is 86 degrees, just a little bit inclined, tiny little bit. Let me see, where'd my comments go? I lost my comments. Let's see, what else did people say? 1 second launch window, that's crazy. Yeah, that's pretty typical for polar orbits, because the Earth is spinning. I need a globe diagram here so I don't have to give you my Earth. But the Earth is spinning, and if they want to hit a certain orbit, in order to travel over a certain area of Earth, they have to launch at that exact moment so that the Earth continues spinning underneath them. So polar orbits generally are instantaneous launch windows. So that's pretty typical when you're doing a polar orbit. Let's see. Here I waste so much fuel doing burns in Kerbal. Yeah, you and me both. My Kerbal fuel efficiency skills are pretty low. Let's see what else we got. So they can still shut down the guidance system after it went internal. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about right before launch. Yeah, they can still shut down right up until launch, basically. It doesn't happen very often, but they can. Yeah, final approvals. What else did we hear? So some of these I saw before we launched. Landing or not? No landing. They were going to simulate it today, so we actually saw the grid fins deploy on the broadcast, which was pretty cool. I liked that view of the grid fins deploying, but I wish they would have just kept going. I mean, even though it's not landing, I don't know. I'd like to see it, completely crash and burn into the ocean. Like, that'd be fun, right? Who doesn't want to see that? Let's see. I'm backing the broadcast up to the. Here, we don't need the sound necessarily, but this was the. You can see the little thrusters there. So this is the first stage here. Then you got the grid fins deployed. So that was still kind of cool to see the grid fins deploy, and then they would have gone on to do the whole simulated landing bit, with probably landing legs deploying and everything else, but didn't show it to us. That's a shame. Let's see. Watching a rocket launch is officially in my bucket list now. Interesting you mentioned that here, because we got a big announcement, which I'm going to put out a video, but since you guys are watching the live stream, you get this exclusive. I already announced it on Twitter, so if you're following us on Twitter, it's not a big surprise. But I am going to be watching the SpaceX rocket launch on April 16th the NASA test mission. I will be at Kennedy Space Center watching that rocket launch. Got invited to the NASA social event. So I'll be heading down to Kennedy Space Center. We get a tour of the Kennedy Space Center. We get to watch from VIP viewing area of the SpaceX launch for the Falcon 9 mission carrying the NASA TESS satellite. That's the Transiting Exoplanet Survey System or Satellite Survey, something like that. We'll do some more research before we actually go down there. Basically, it's searching for exoplanets. It's using, it's measuring the light coming from stars and looking at the dip in light to see planets that are passing in front of it or in between the star and us. So that's the satellite going up on April 16th, and I'll be there. Pretty pumped. I can't wait. I'm super excited to be down there. So make sure you're following along, subscribe, do all the, you know what to do. Because I'll be putting out videos while I'm down there at the Kennedy Space Center for sure. Super pumped about that. Let's see. A whole bunch of more comments here. Didn't know if restricted. Yeah, I don't know about the NOAA restriction. I am interested about that. You can always depend on the conspiracy theorists. Yeah, I'm sure some people will mention that, especially about the NOAA restriction. Yeah, no recovery today. Let's see. Did they land the first stage? No landing for the first stage. That they simulated the landing, but there was no drone ship out there. Just a big explosion into the ocean. Although it would have been a potential soft landing, I believe, is what they were going for. So just no ship there to catch it. Strange he could have kept talking. Yeah, I kind of thought so too. Like, obviously we're here, we're talking, we're going on about it, but yeah, they just end the broadcast. Done. So yeah, no news yet. Waiting for word from Elon on Twitter. Yep, you and me both. I'm watching Elon's Twitter, waiting for word of either Mr. Steven catching it or the first, anything about the first stage. They probably won't say anything about that, but, so let's see. Gregorius, nice. Will you stream from there? Assuming you're talking the Kennedy Space Center stuff. I do plan to do a whole bunch of live streaming videos and stuff from the Kennedy Space Center for that launch. I've heard that bandwidth can be tough. So we'll find out if I have enough bandwidth to actually do some streaming. But I'm bringing the stuff. We're going to try. We're going to try to do some streaming while we're there. So yeah, GoPro it. I got a whole bunch of GoPros I'm bringing down. I got my cameras I'm bringing down. We're bringing it all. We're going to do some, we're going to film the launch at least. I'm going to watch the launch. I'll do some streaming. We'll take some pictures, maybe get some views inside the Kennedy Space Center. I don't know what we're going to do, but it could be, I'm pumped. We'll see how it goes. I'm super excited. So let's see. NOAA issues the licenses for commercial remote sensing license. Possible theory could be that video during the ascent is for operational purposes, while anything afterwards would be remote sensing, which, if carried out by a U.S. entity, falls under NOAA authority. All right, that's according to Mattman on YouTube. He says that NOAA issues the authority for remote sensing, which may be the second stage portion. I don't know. I have no idea. That's kind of still interesting to me. So, a couple people commenting on Facebook. Donald, good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning. Watching from the Philippines. Oh, we got some people from the Philippines. Where's the video of Stage 1 rocket as it returns to Earth? Yep, no Stage 1 returning today because that, well, I shouldn't say that. It is returning. They're just not showing it to us because they're doing a simulated landing. No drone ship there to actually catch it. It's going to soft land in the water, and it will be officially expended. So, let's see. Interesting. Didn't know that about. No, I didn't know that either. That is definitely interesting. So yeah, that's where I was gonna go somewhere with that. What was I gonna say? I don't know. But yeah, no word yet on the Mr. Steven boat. That is kind of interesting to see. I really got it. I got to know how this thing works. We got a lot of clapping. I don't know if you heard that in the broadcast. I probably can't find it. I was going to go look for the clapping, but But we also, so somebody said they paid for license for Starman. I'm assuming that's the NOAA license you're talking about, from the Falcon Heavy launch, and for Microsat 1 A and B. Yeah, the Microsats, that's the new experimental broadband service from SpaceX, and kind of an interesting thing to talk about. SpaceX got official approval from the FCC to offer broadband services via the Starlink satellite constellation. So that's pretty exciting. Still going to be far off because it won't be operational until they have at least 800 satellites in orbit. So that's kind of crazy that they have to have that many in orbit, but it won't even be operational until they have 800 in orbit. So we still got some time before we see SpaceX Starlink broadband service, but they got the first step, FCC approval to offer broadband service. So that's a big thing right there. Let's see. Definitely, it was a licensing issue, says Jason. I guess the clapping was due to the successful parking orbit insertion. Oh, that could be. Maybe they're just clapping for the parking orbit. I thought maybe they were clapping for the Mr. Steven catch. That'd be pretty neat. But yeah, no word yet on Mr. Steven. So, Tom, hello from Ireland. Hello, Ireland. It's good to see you here. Thanks for hanging out with us and joining today. Yeah, let's see. We're gonna show. Nope. Yeah, we already showed all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, well, what else can we show before we end here? Because I do want to try to stick around a little bit to see if we get some notification from, let's look at the Twitter machine here. Got a whole bunch of tweets coming in, some hashtag space lobsters. Somebody sent me a GIF of Aladdin. I don't know what that is. It's from Deborah and Michael. Sent me a GIF of Aladdin singing A Whole New World. I don't know what that's about, but I like Aladdin. Oh, and Jason sent me the URL about the NOAA thing. Probably because YouTube won't let you post the URL in our comments. They have 6 years to get 4,000 satellites up and running according to the license. Oh, that's the Starlink thing I think you're talking about. Yeah, because they're going to have 4,000 satellites eventually. There's actually 2 constellations, but one of them is 4,000. The other one's like, I don't know, I think it was like 6,000 or 7,000 or something like that. But yeah, the main constellation was 4,000 satellites. They have 6 years to get them up, and it will be considered operational. They'll actually be able to offer service once they get 800 up. But they will go on to put eventually 4,000 of these Starlink satellites up, that's a crazy amount of satellites. So yes, Sanchi says the feed has deployment stages listed. It's definitely a last-minute restriction. Isn't this fishy? I wouldn't read too much into that. So he's talking about at the bottom of the, if we back up here, we'll go full screen so you can actually see it.
Looking good.
Well, you can't see it while I have the video paused, but I guess I could play it. I'll just mute it. At the bottom of the video there, it has the stage deployments. That's actually pretty normal. Even when they do cut the broadcast off, a lot of times they have the full mission schedule shown on those different deployment points. I think the screen here is cutting it off at the bottom, but you have it's just cutting off the text at the bottom. So you have startup, then you have liftoff, which you can't see on mine. Then you have MECO, which you can see. The next dot, which you can't see the text, says second engine cutoff. And then there's second engine startup. And then all the dots there at the very end. Those are all the right over in this region. Those are the deployments of each satellite. So it is pretty normal for them to have that because I believe. I think at least sometimes they use that same feed for internal use. So I don't think it's necessarily strange to have those things, even though they're not showing it on the broadcast, because they've done that before. Let's see, another theory. Top secret NSA satellites usually take a polar orbit if they go over Russia, hence the NOAA restriction. Maybe, could be, another good theory. They only need to get half of the 4,000 satellites up and running. Yeah, actually, from what I read, it's actually less than half. I read that the Starlink constellation, they only need to get 800 up to be considered operational. Obviously, the more they get, the better the better service they'll be able to provide. But I think they only need 800 to actually start offering service, which is still a lot of satellites. But so let's see. Oh, somebody sent me a view. Steven from, I'm assuming Steven must be from Southern California. Here, we'll see if I can show it up here on the screen. Here, we don't need that. Here's a view from Steven. He sent me on Twitter at OLHCN. Sent this to me from, I'm guessing, from Southern California. His view of this morning's SpaceX launch. That's a pretty sweet view. Nice to be able to just go outside and see the launch for yourself. That's kind of cool. I would love to just be able to look out my window and watch rocket launches. I don't know if that's the case for Steven, but he did send me that picture. Thanks for sending that to me. Appreciate it. Let's see. Oh, so Jason sent me the NOAA licensing thing. Here, I do want to look at this here. Let's look at it together. Here you go. So this is what Jason sent me on Twitter about the licensing of private remote sensing space systems. Okay, welcome to this website's intended for blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. Who is required? It is unlawful for any person who is subject to operate a private remote sensing space system without possession of a valid license issued under the Act and the regulations. Okay, so process to apply. This is the process. Licensing conditions. Conditions for operation. Licenses. I'm kind of skimming this to see if there's anything interesting that leads to our NOAA restriction today. I don't know what this is. Oh, that's national security stuff. These are corporations that have licenses. Assuming, yeah, there's SpaceX that has a license for microsat. Kind of cool. There's the microsat license for SpaceX. Interesting. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I wonder if that does have something to do with it. Although I guess the only question I would have, if that is the case, is I guess why would they not have, if they do require that license, why would they not have a license for this flight and not and have it for other flights? Because we've watched full satellite deployments before. We saw it on they're all blurring together, but we saw it on Hispasat, and didn't we see it on the POTH satellite too, I believe? But we saw the satellite deployments, so I don't know why we wouldn't see it on this one. But yeah, look at NOAA licenses. SpaceX is there for Starman. Oh, Starman has a license? I didn't see that. I just see microsat listed there. Was there, is it in the PDF maybe? Yeah, this one just says something about microsat from what I can see. Although, yeah, just did a little quick search to see if I could find Starman on there. But I don't see anything about Starman. But yeah, still interesting. Didn't even know that was a thing. But makes sense. So, yeah, well, thanks for sending that to me, Jason. That's something of definitely interesting that I knew nothing about. Didn't know that NOAA even was involved in licensing for remote sensing systems. I would have figured that'd be something more like the FCC that would issue licenses for that kind of thing. But apparently NOAA's involved in that. Could you post that link on Twitter? I would like to look at it further. Oh, yeah, sure. Here, we'll just retweet Jason's tweet. There you go. There you go. Who asked me that? Buckeye Storms, the link, the NOAA link. That I just retweeted it on Twitter. So check out at OLHCN on Twitter. I retweeted the link that Jason sent me. So thanks for that, Jason. They need 8. Oh, okay. So that's what Stealth Haro the 007 says. They need 800 to get it working, but 2,000 minimum to meet their contract. Okay, that's I didn't know. Didn't know they had a minimum on their contract. That makes sense, but I hadn't read about the 2,000 minimum. So yeah, 800 to get the Starlink constellation working. Sounds like 2,000 is the minimum that they need in order to meet the contract. The goal is going to be 4,000 total. It's not exactly 4,000, but they're there's 4,000 and change. Microsat was a second payload with Starman. No, I don't think it was. Microsat wasn't the second payload with Starman. Microsat was a secondary payload on either Hispasat or the POTH satellite launch. Starman was all by itself. That was Falcon Heavy. The Starlink Microsats, that was secondary to. I don't remember if it was Hispasat or the POTH satellite. I think it was Hispasat, wasn't it? I'd have to look back. Let's see. Maybe. Well, the FCC would only regulate the radio transmissions for the webcast. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was thinking was the radio transmissions. But, I mean, for remote sensing equipment, I mean, that's how you're getting your remote sensing is by radio transmissions. So that's kind of why I thought maybe the FCC would be involved in that and not NOAA. I don't quite get why NOAA would issue the license, but I don't think FCC can regulate the data content of the transmission. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's the content that they're licensing. I don't know. Interesting. Mr. Stevens is 5 minutes away from being under the falling fairing. Don't have live video. That's a quote from Mattman. I'm assuming. Did you see that on Twitter somewhere? Because I didn't see that yet. Yeah, last update I had from SpaceX was just the second stage being in the coast phase. So we should see. Let's see. We launched at what time? We launched 10:13. We launched. So and what did we say? 52 minutes is when the second stage would start up again. So about 11:05, that would put our second stage. Relight. So we got about another 15 minutes and the second stage will relight. And then I don't remember what was the time frame after that. The satellite deployment begins at 57. So that's 11:10 is going to be when the satellites start to deploy. So that's 11:10 Eastern. It will be 8:10 Pacific time. I don't know, what is that in UTC? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 10 UTC, is that right? For my time? Yeah, that sounds about right. I'll go with that. So let's see what else we had coming in here. Elon tweeted that? Oh, I thought I had. Don't I have? I'm supposed to have notifications when Elon tweets. I'm supposed to get Oh, he did tweet that. How come I didn't get the notification? Oh, Twitter. Now I'm doubting my Twitter. Why did I get the Twitter notification? I'm supposed to get notifications anytime Elon Musk tweets, but I didn't. But yeah, he did. Apparently, he did tweet that. Yeah, I got notifications turned on for Elon Musk. What here? We'll turn them off and turn them back on again. Off, on. Okay, maybe I'll actually get the notifications if he tweets again. But anyway, so well, here we'll put this. We can put this up on the screen so we can all take a look together. Here we go. So I'm looking at Elon's Twitter. You got, this is the tweet that they were referring to, said, well, originally he tweeted that they were attempting recovery of the fairing falling down from space with our boat Mr. Steven. It's a giant steel and webbing catcher's mitt, which I love that that's how they describe it. It's basically pretty much what it is, a giant catcher's mitt. Superstructure on a high-speed ocean ship. That's kind of cool. I guess that makes a whole lot of, it makes a little more sense. Like, I'm picturing this slow-moving boat that's trying to lumber its way underneath this falling payload and somehow is going to be there when it catches it. I mean, maybe, I guess the fact that it's a high-speed ocean ship, that, I guess that's, well, that's going to help. Mr. Stevens, 5 minutes away from being under the falling fairing, no live video, and that was at 10:43. So that should be done. That would have been done at 10:48, which was 4 minutes ago. So 4 minutes ago, we should have had something. I love this. This is pretty much about what I'm thinking here about on the just waiting for news on that Mr. Steven catch. Like, I just want to know if it actually caught it. Crazy. So it didn't show up in my timeline either. Had to go to his profile. That's weird. I don't know why it, yeah, I didn't get any, I didn't get notifications of any of those tweets that Elon sent out. He's like super stealthy tweeting apparently. Cause I got that notification. I got the 60 minutes to launch notification. I don't know. Somehow he's got special Twitter privileges. He's stealth tweeting, and I'm not getting notifications of that. All right. Let's see. Just reading up about TESS. Yeah, that's the mission I'm going to watch. We'll cover area 400 times larger than Kepler. Can detect Earth-sized worlds. Will build targets for James Webb Telescope. Very cool mission. It is a pretty sweet mission. I just kind of breezed through it just a little bit. I mean, I love the idea of the satellite. I didn't really look too much into the details yet. I certainly will before I get down there. But I'm super excited to head down to Kennedy to get a tour of the Space Center. I've never actually been in the Kennedy Space Center. The only other time I've been down there. So this is so obviously I'm in Western New York, so it's not like it's a hop, skip, and a jump down to Kennedy Space Center. It's a little bit of a trek for me. But the only other time that I've been down there was for STS-133, I think it was. It wasn't the last shuttle flight, but it was like the second to last one, or maybe it was the third to last one. I don't remember what it was, but it was one of the last shuttle flights, and I went down there to go watch it, and it got scrubbed until like a month later. So I flew down there just to see this launch, and they scrubbed it, and it wasn't like scrub and come back tomorrow. It's scrubbed. We're going to do it again in a month. And I was like, oh, God, I can't stay here for a month. So I missed it. I didn't get to see it. I had to fly home. So, yeah, that was a bummer. So I've never actually been to Kennedy and seen a rocket launch in person, which is crazy considering how much I love rocket launches. But I'm pretty pumped because I'm going to actually see the Kennedy Space Center, get a tour of it, see this launch. That's on April 16th. I'll be down there. I'm heading down the 14th. I'll be there. The 15th, I think, is like our tour and our tour and that kind of stuff. 16th is the launch. Then I'm back roughly on the 17th. Unless it gets scrubbed or moved, then I may stay down there a little while. So, yeah, Gregorius, knock on wood, that won't happen on your next visit. I know, right? Yeah, I'm gonna have my wood desk and knock on wood that it doesn't happen on the next one here. Because I'm super pumped. I really want to go down there and see this guy in action. And I originally, there's still no word on this yet, but originally they said that there would not be a recovery for the first stage booster for the test mission that I'm going to see. And I was kind of like, all right, well, I'll get to see the launch anyways. It'd be cool to see the landing. But just read the other day that they were potentially applying for a landing permit at LZ-1 for that first stage booster. That would be awesome to see not only the launch, but the landing as well. It's not official yet. They haven't announced that, but I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, that they'll actually land at LZ1. So they canceled the landing. They were going to land at LZ1 for the CRS mission, which is on Monday. We'll be back Monday for the next SpaceX launch. So CRS mission, the crew resupply mission that's going to the space station. The booster was supposed to come back and land at LZ1, but they're not doing that anymore apparently. So maybe they will do it for the test mission. That would be awesome. But yeah, that's the one coming up on April 16th. So going forward, what we got, this is the first of 6 launches here coming up in a hurry, or maybe it's 5 now. I thought it was 6. But well, anyways, we got there's a whole slew of launches coming up. We got Iridium-5, which happened today. CRS-14, which is coming up on Monday. We got the test mission. Yes, the test mission. That's what I'll be there for. Super pumped. That's on April 16th. April 24th, we're looking at the, oh God, I'm going to butcher the name of this one, but that's the Bangabandu. Like the name, I don't know how to say it, but Bangabandu. That's the next satellite mission. That one is going to have a recovery on, of course, I Still Love You. And then we got Iridium-6 coming up at the beginning of May. We got SES-12 coming up also in May. So we got a whole slew of stuff happening in the next month and a half or so. So yeah, pretty exciting. And then the next Falcon Heavy is right now slated for June 13th. So definitely stick around for the next Falcon Heavy. I'm pretty pumped about that. That's STP-2. Which is a Department of Defense or U.S. Air Force payload with a whole slew of stuff on there. There's like 24 satellites on board. It's like 20, I think it was 25 satellites total on board Falcon Heavy Flight 2. So let's see. I didn't see any word yet. Nothing yet from Elon that I've seen here. Let's see. I love the whole Mr. Steven idea. So Elon thinking outside the box. Yeah, that is kind of crazy. Another thing to recover, those payload fairings are like $6 million. So, it'd be, as long as the cost of operating the boat and everything else, the crew and whatever you got to do to recover it isn't $6 million, then, there's more cost savings for the Falcon. Let's see. Oh, give me some tips for my NASA visit, fly into Orlando, then take the Beeline Expressway East to the Kennedy Space Center. Awesome. Yeah, I hadn't figured out driving arrangements yet, but I already got, I got a plan in mind for flights and hotels and rental cars and stuff like that. So hopefully I should be able to line all that up just fine. And then I just got to figure out my way around. So at least I know this. We're taking the Beeline Expressway. Thanks for the tip. Interesting reading online from Jason. Licensing may have been missed by NOAA when the government had its shutdown in January. Crazy. Oh, that could be interesting. If the government shutdown affected getting a NOAA license for this launch, I have no idea, but could be interesting. May have to go to that Falcon Heavy close to my birthday. It would be great to watch from the beach. Yeah, one of these days I got to get down and see a Falcon Heavy too. That would be fantastic to see that. I would love to see a Falcon Heavy. That thing is a beast. But yeah, June 13th, and then there's another one coming up, with the Arabsat one. That was originally the one that was going to be Falcon Heavy 2, but that got pushed back. The Arabsat 6A satellite wasn't even close to being ready, so now that's like Q3 of 2018. So that'd be like in the fall. That'll be Falcon Heavy 3. Let's see. Fingers crossed for the test first stage return. That's going to be awesome if you see it. I know, that would be so amazing to see. I mean, I'd be pumped just to see the launch by itself. Like that alone, that'll do it for me. But if you package in the launch and the landing, that'd be just amazing. It'd be fantastic. I really hope they do it, but we'll find out. It's not official yet. We'll find out soon. Let's see. I got some Twitter messages coming in. Let's see. Somebody on Twitter said the original question was, "What we have to get to the bottom of this NOAA webcast situation." SpaceX says it was their restrictions, and NOAA said that it wasn't us. So, okay. So somebody on Twitter. So this is from Chris at NASA Spaceflight. Said that he said his money is on a NOAA plane may have been unavailable today to provide a link between the second stage and the ground, but they don't know for sure. So that, I guess that's a possibility too, that maybe NOAA uses their aircraft to provide that link between the ground and the second stage, and it wasn't available today. Dave Griffin on Twitter says perhaps it was really just a guy within SpaceX named Noah that didn't want to work hard on Friday. I like that one. I like that comment. Let's see. Can't imagine the sound of Falcon Heavy in person. Must be awesome. Yeah, I know that would be amazing to see. It's, from what I hear, it's not even just the sound. It's the sound and the feeling. Like it just hits you. So let's see. Yeah. 25 satellites on Falcon Heavy 2. That's crazy. Yeah, it's like the U-Haul of rockets. Yeah, the Falcon Heavy 2, I'm pretty sure it's 25 satellites on board. They're all small, nothing huge, but yeah, 25 satellites on board Falcon Heavy 2. So that'll be pretty awesome to see. Any word yet from me? No word yet from SpaceX on the Mr. Steven. So they're probably busy. It landed, from what they said, 10:48 Eastern time is when it was supposed to land. So haven't heard anything yet. I'm sure they're probably pretty busy trying to figure out what's happening. Let's see. So we are coming up. 11:05 is the relight of the second stage. So we hopefully get confirmation from SpaceX here in just a minute that that's happening. So we should be just a minute or two away from that second stage relight, and then we'll have the satellite deployments about 5 minutes after that. So by my watch, it's 1 minute until we get that second stage relight. So 25 satellites and one space lobster. I know, wouldn't that be awesome if I could send a space lobster up on board? GX2 Music says definitely try to go to that Falcon Heavy 2 launch. It's the stuff you'll be telling your grandchildren. I know, I gotta get to one of those too, one of these days. I mean, the hard part is just you gotta take time off from work, you gotta fly down there, you gotta get a hotel and a rental car. It's an expensive thing, and then if it gets scrubbed, then it's like, all right, then you fly back, or do you stay down there, what do you do? So that's the hard thing about not living that close. But one of these days, I definitely got to get down there to see it. You see that Falcon Heavy. Who knows when the BFR comes out a couple of years from now? That's going to be something. That's going to be a sight to see. Yeah, be crazy. Let's see. Falcon 9's upper stage has flown over Antarctica. Is now in range of tracking stations in South Africa and Mauritius. I don't know how to say that. Restart at 52 minutes 5 seconds. Yeah, that should be pretty much right now. I haven't seen confirmation yet that we have had relight, but we should be, second stage should be up and running pretty much right now. Anywhere. Yep, the last thing I saw was 42 minutes ago. It just says that they're still in coast phase, so hopefully that should be, we should get an announcement soon that those are up and that the second stage is running, and that's just a quick burn. They said 4 seconds. The mission press kit says 11 seconds, whatever it is, somewhere between 4 and 11 seconds. I guess I'm going to trust what Michael said on the broadcast there. It's Michael, right? I think it's Michael. 4 second burn. So quick burn, circularize the orbit, and then they start the satellite deployment at 11:10. That's 4 minutes away. So that burn, at this point, that second stage relight should be done. Should have happened, because like I said, it's only a quick short burn. So Graham Green, hello, hashtag Space Lobster. Hello, Graham. Thanks for hanging out with us today. That's on Facebook. We're streaming live on both YouTube and Facebook at the same time. That's typically what I try to do. Once in a lifetime, mate, do it. Remember how we look back at Saturn V and wish we were there? Heavy is our Saturn V. Definitely go to it. I know I got to get down there to see it. I think the same thing about, that STS, the shuttle launch that I went to that got scrubbed for a month. It was like, I went down there to go see it, and it got scrubbed, and I couldn't stay for a month. But it got scrubbed, and I guess, one of the things that I'll probably, for the rest of my life, will be thinking about is how I never got to see the space shuttle launch. And I should have just done it and just gone down there again. But I didn't. So, but we're going to see the SpaceX, hopefully. I don't want to jinx myself, but hopefully we're going to see that SpaceX NASA test mission on April 16th. Pretty pumped about that. And hopefully I can share it with you guys. I want to get the live broadcast going and get the I'll get some pictures and videos, and we'll do a whole thing about it. So hopefully get a whole bunch of content that we can share once I get back. Let's see, maybe start up a hashtag Space Lobster travel agency, and we'll have launch parties. There you go. We need a Space Lobster travel agency to manage your travel to and from the launch facilities. That would be fantastic. I know nothing about the travel industry other than how to book myself a plane ticket and a hotel. But it would be nice if they had something, a space-friendly booking, so that you could cancel flights and hotels and move them, and without having cancellation fees and all that kind of stuff. Because that's the big thing. Like, you don't want to pay those rescheduling fees or the cancellation fees if you have to stay down there for a couple days. It's just a whole big thing. But BFR launch is something I will be even going to. I'm thousands of miles away in the UK. I know that the BFR, that will be amazing as well. The Falcon Heavy is still amazing, but second stage final burn underway. Yep, I just saw that from SpaceX. Yeah, just 2 minutes ago they tweeted out that the engine burn's underway. Again, that's only a 4-second burn, so it should be underway and done. So it's just like that. And then 11:10, which is 1 minute away, is when we should start satellite deployment, and that will go until what is that? 72 minutes after launch is when that's going to go to. So that's 11:25. That's when all the satellites should be launched. So 11:10 to 11:25 will be the launch of all 10 satellites, 100 seconds apart. Let's see what else we got here. No word from Elon yet on the Mr. Steven boat. Does that mean that it failed? I don't know. Hard to say. Could be either. I don't know. Could have been successful, and they've just taken their time securing it, getting it locked down, and don't have any pictures yet to share. Could also mean that it failed and they don't have any pictures to share because it just went down in a blaze of glory. Who knows? I mean, I don't think it would actually catch fire. There's not anything. Well, there are thrusters on board, I guess, but there's not really enough propellant for it to blow up in a giant explosion. It could break apart, and maybe the ship could blow up, but I would hope not. I would hope they would have thought of that on how to make sure that they don't blow themselves up while they're trying to catch this payload fairing. But I don't think there's not much risk. I think of an explosion, really just probably a breakup and debris if it hits in the wrong place or something. Because that's the other thing too. Not only does it have to hit the net, but you got to make sure you don't hit those posts that are there. You see the picture, the claw. I don't know. That's crazy to me. I think Jason says, I think we're on to something. Space launch tourism. It's what Elon wants. Interest in space again. Yeah, that's a big thing. And I think SpaceX is doing a fantastic job of that. of getting the interest back in space, because it's, I love it. I'm following along with it. You know, the Falcon Heavy stuff is fantastic. Even there were 125,000 people watching today's SpaceX launch, which is kind of a routine launch today. Like, it was an Iridium satellite, nothing special. There was no landing, no crazy I mean, the Mr. Steven thing is crazy and experimental, but they didn't show it. I mean, all they showed today on the broadcast was just the launch and pretty much it. They ended it at second stage cutoff. But there were 125,000 people watching the SpaceX broadcast today, which is crazy that there's that many people interested in it. I mean, ULA doesn't get that kind of viewership. NASA doesn't even get that kind of viewership on their flights. Like the what am I trying to think of? But, you know, your Atlas rockets, your Delta rockets, you know, nobody's getting that kind of viewership that SpaceX has. Everybody just seems to be interested in SpaceX, which is crazy. I like it. So SpaceX says the second stage burn 2 is complete. First satellite has been deployed. So there you go. Confirmation that the first satellite is out and they are deploying. So that's fantastic. Looks like it's going to be a successful flight. We got about another just over 10 minutes to get the rest of those satellites out. So they're almost to the end of their mission from the SpaceX standpoint, at least. Can you imagine cheap airline culture like Ryanair in Europe applied to rocket flights within the Earth? That would be pretty awesome. Because that's one of the ideas of BFR is not only just space travel, but Earth-to-Earth travel. I mean, the idea that you could go to New York City, jump on a BFR rocket, and be in Australia in 30 minutes is that's pretty crazy. I don't want to be the first one on that, but I do want to watch the first one. I don't want to be the first one on board, though. I'll save that for somebody else. Not that adventurous. So, well, anyway, I don't see much. I'm still going to buy some time here while I'm waiting for some updates from SpaceX. But in case you were following along with us and with our flights, so we had a flight. Our first high altitude balloon flight for 2018 was not this past Wednesday, but a week ago Wednesday. It was a partial success. We didn't recover it, which we intended to. The update at the moment is still not much different than it was last Wednesday when we ended the broadcast. We have no word on where it landed. The balloon went up, and we had some great we had some great data coming back. Got great great coverage on the radio signals. Everything seemed to be going perfectly, and then the balloon burst, and then we lost signal. Still not sure what went on. Likely either the batteries froze or the antenna. You know, it's possible. One of the things that we were thinking about is a long payload train. The antenna also kind of sticks out, so it's possible that the payload train could have wrapped on the antenna and pulled tight and ripped the antenna off. That's also possible. And if that happened, then we wouldn't get any more signal on it as well. So a lot can happen at that balloon burst. It's a pretty violent event when the balloon bursts, but we lost signal from our flight after the balloon burst, but doesn't necessarily mean that we didn't get anything back, because we actually got a lot of data back that we were able to generate some pretty good image. Let's see, can I get this over here? Yeah, we got, oh, wait, that's not what I want. Hold on, let me get this. How do I, So when I say imagery, sorry, I'm just kind of like vamping and talking off the top of my head. I don't mean imagery like camera imagery, like we've got, it's probably the wrong word to use there, because we didn't have any cameras on board this flight. Yeah, a little bit boring, no cameras on board. Why is that not, come on, open it up. No cameras on board this flight. We're focusing just strictly on data alone and the radio tracking. Here, we can hide this here now. For our, yeah, so, sorry, I'm trying to do too many things at one time. Here's a little, this is our SKU-T graph from our, oh no, that's not even, That's the wrong one. Can I, that one's ours, right there. So that's the skew-T graph that we generate. So one of the things that we were trying to do on our flights is we wanted to get the radio tracking system set up, and then we were also doing some post-flight analysis that we wanted to be able to take all the data that we collect and basically generate the exact same thing that the Weather Service generates when they do their weather balloon flights. So we are at that point now where we can fly our missions. We can do them with cameras if we want, or if we do them without, and the camera missions will still be able to generate the same data. If we do them without cameras, we'll be able to generate this data, I guess it's this data, even without any cameras, so we can still get a lot of valuable stuff out of it. And now it took us a while to actually get to this point, so this data is old now. It's not like you would be able to use this for any sort of weather predicting or forecasting or anything like that, because at this point it's a week and a half old. This system is long gone. But now we should be able to do this instantaneously once the flight's over, just like that. So hopefully that will work well on our second flight this year. That was one of the big things that we wanted to accomplish for the first flight, and we were able to do that even though we did not recover that flight. It's still out there. The frustrating thing, at least with that flight, is I know within a couple of blocks, I know where that flight landed. Like we did. One of the cool things, because we generated so much data, is now we can generate post-flight predictions if we lose a flight like this, and get much more accurate landing predictions using the actual flight data as our basis for the prediction. Instead of using like forecasted weather models, we can use our actual flight path as the forecast basis to run a post-flight prediction. So if we do lose it, we can do that, which we've done, but didn't help. Still don't know where it is. But there's a lot of farm fields there. Like we're driving around, but I mean, you can only see a couple hundred feet into the farm field. I mean, it could be just over the ridge and I wouldn't see it. So I don't know. We're still going to look around. It's also got a phone number, contact information that's on there as well. So hopefully hopefully somebody finds it and lets us know what's going on. So I can show you if you want to take a look. We'll take a look at some of the Overlook Horizon 10 data here in just a second. But I do want to update on SpaceX. Second Iridium satellite is out. Third one's out. Fourth one's out. So we're on our way to having all 10 of those deployed here. So we're almost there. So let's see. Yeah. So just in case you're interested, this is kind of just auxiliary information. But let's see. Can I do this? We're going to try to run Google Maps and the broadcast at the same time. Google Maps takes a lot of my resources, so I don't know if this will work, but we're going to try. Because we'll show you. Yeah, so in case you're curious, if you followed along with, I probably should put this on the other screen. Let's move it over here so you can see it, and then we'll full screen it like this. There we go. So here's a look at the Overlook Horizon 10 flight path, at least up until the point where we lost it here. So we launched from here, headed up this direction. It was supposed to do this pretty interesting flight path where let's see, sorry, trying to 3D move this around here. So it came off the launch path here to the southeast, so we kind of rotated around. The south is this direction here now. So it came down to the southwest, and then it went northwest, and then it went back to the northeast, so it did this big U-turn. And so we got a whole bunch of nice data here on the actual flight path. We measured temperature, humidity, pressure. We've got all kinds of stuff along the way, dew points, the whole kit and caboodle that you would need for any sort of weather forecasting. And then we had balloon burst, which was right here. And then after that, we got one transmission after balloon burst, and we lost it. And so let's see, one of these, this one? No, I thought I saved it. I might not have saved it here. Let me, I can load it. Maybe it's this one here. Let's try to load this one in. So these are, it's going to really muddy up. Oh, that's not the one we want. These are post-flight predictions that I was talking about. Yeah, so these are some of the post-flight predictions. This is using our this is using our data as the post-flight prediction model, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, this was, so that balloon burst, somebody mentioned 65,000 feet. Yeah, that was 65,000 feet up when we had our balloon burst. And then what it was supposed to do afterwards, if we look at the top-down view here, so it's supposed to come up here, brake here, and then do another U-turn. It's supposed to proceed a little bit to the northeast, make another U-turn back to the southwest, and the landing should be in this region here, somewhere. We just don't, although it's pretty compact, it's still a large area to try to search. So, I mean, relatively speaking, it's very small considering that, you know, at least, you know, we narrowed it down to, you know, it's not like the entire state of New York. So relatively speaking, it's pretty small, but when you get to it and you're trying to walk it, it's still a pretty large area. So anyways, that's the update on our last flight, trying to figure out where that went, see if somebody finds it. We may do a little more searching this weekend. It'll probably be pretty casual and informal because that's, I don't expect to be able to really see it from the road, at least. Kind of relying on somebody finding it and seeing the phone number. So Jason says, what is your confidence level the parachute functioned correctly? 100% confident. The parachutes, well, the only thing that we were worried about on the parachute was it going to work too well and come down too slowly? But as far as it working, parachute's pretty much 100% success on a parachute because it's an inline parachute, which basically means that it's already deployed while it's flying. And the only thing that keeps it from interfering with the flight is the fact that the balloon, oh wait, here, I got a parachute. Let's get a parachute out here. We can full screen this. Show you how this actually works. So this is pretty much the exact same parachute that flew on board. It's a little tiny parachute, not very big. Let's see, which way? That's it. This is a little tiny parachute. And it was a little tiny payload. It was just this circuit board that flew on board. It's a little tiny circuit board that went on board the flight. It was just this, attached to this, attached to a balloon, and that was it. There was not much going on for the last flight. But, so basically, like the way the inline parachute works, you don't have to worry about deploying it. That would definitely implement a level of complexity that we don't want things to go wrong. But we don't do that. We do an inline parachute. It basically means we attach the balloon to the top of the canopy here, which while the balloon is ascending, it pulls the parachute tight, and then as soon as the balloon breaks, it's not pulling it tight anymore, and so the parachute just opens as soon as it touches the air. So yeah, definitely pretty confident that the parachute actually worked. It's just a matter of, the question was, like, this is the smallest parachute that I could get, which is pretty small, but technically, based on the specifications, is still too big for this little circuit board. So that was our big question, was, is this even tiny parachute still too big for this little circuit board? So that was really the question. Let's see. All right, a couple more SpaceX updates. 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Iridium satellites are out. They are deployed now, just waiting on the last 2, and then that'll be it. And it doesn't sound like they're going to give us any updates on Mr. Steven here, so I'm just going to wait for that last satellite deploy to occur. We'll see if they say anything about Mr. Steven, although it doesn't really sound like they're going to. But we'll see. We'll see if they do. Let's see. A couple comments coming through. So we've got some people talking about our space tourism, our space lobster tourism. Somebody saw, where would that comment go? OLHCN 10 Overlook Horizon 10 followed the predicted track amazingly close. It was great to watch. Yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah, it was pretty amazing how close it followed our pre-flight predictions. Buckeye Storm says maybe get an LED strobe on them if you don't do that already. I have seen them used on drones. Yeah, we would use LED strobes on if we do anything for night flights or even dusk or dawn or twilight flights. We definitely have an LED strobe on board for those flights. We don't have an LED strobe on board our regular flights. And actually, the FAA has said they do not want us to have an LED strobe on those flights. I believe this is just kind of speculation, but I believe the idea is that it causes more confusion than it's worth for them. But yeah, but they do have us put LED strobes if we do night flights, twilight flights, dawn, dusk, things like that. So let's see. Buckeye Storm, so ST's rockets chutes. We thought about using the ST's rockets parachutes for that little flight. The problem is, though, is that those rocket payload chutes don't have the loop at the top. Like, we use parachutes that are specifically meant for high altitude ballooning, and that really the only difference is the fact that they have this loop on top that we can connect the balloon to. Your regular like model rocket parachute doesn't have that loop up top for us to connect to. So the only connection point would be at the bottom for the rocket, and then the parachute would ascend with the balloon upside down. It would open during the ascent while it's going up and would slow down our ascent rate. We'd have a harder time predicting it. So that's the trouble with the model rocket parachutes. We could use one, but it just creates a little complication. So not to say it's completely ruled out, but we would like to avoid that if possible and just use a regular balloon parachute when possible. Let's see. All 10 satellites are away, completing the in-orbit deployment sequence. Let's see. Did we see? I was waiting for the last notification on the last two from SpaceX. Did they get those last? Yep, there you go. Successful deployment of all 10 Iridium NEXT satellites to low Earth orbit confirmed. So there you go. Successful flight for SpaceX. They are done. That is the end. That's the end of their mission. And that's all they had to do was get those 10 in orbit. So it looks like everything went well for SpaceX this morning. Well, we've been going here now for almost 2 hours. I think we had a good little chat. We talked a little bit about SpaceX, a little bit about our flights, but I'm probably going to get it wrapped up here. We'll be back again Monday for the CRS-14 launch. So join us on Monday. Jason said, would attaching a long high visibility streamer also help with finding it? Yeah, we may do that on the next little one, like our big box that we fly, which actually it's behind me over my shoulder there. Yeah, this is our regular payload that we fly, which does have this orange reflective high visibility tape around the outside. This is really hard to do in mirrored camera mode. But this orange reflective tape does help locate the payload. But generally, if the radio tracking system works fine, then we don't have to worry about that because we just find it on radio. But yeah, we may do something like a high visibility streamer. That would probably help. We were thinking about that afterwards because, you know, if we're searching around looking for it like this, if we had a big flashlight and it had like some ultra reflective tape or like a streamer of some sort that we could shine that flashlight and just see that reflection come back, that could help us find it. So Buckeye Storm says that even maybe some mirrors to glint from the sun. Yeah, something like that. That would help in the daytime too. If you had like mirrors or something like that, that might be tough to try to position. Plus then you got the weight thing, because the point of this little tiny payload is to try to get it as light as possible. So anything we're adding is adding weight to it. So that was the intent, was to try to keep it as light as possible. So, oh yeah, and then Buckeye Storm says, yeah, that might go back to the FAA for issues like the strobe. Yeah, if you got a mirror on board, yeah, the FAA may have issues with the mirror. Maybe, well, they've been okay with the reflective tape. So something reflective like that, I don't think that's as big of an issue. But the mirrors, they may have an issue with, shining a pilot's eyes or something like that. We don't want to do that. So, all right. So, anyway, yes, and Jason says, have a pilot on hand to help locate it from the air. Yeah, well, we've got our drone that we're going to fly actually tomorrow, fly over an area where we think it is, maybe see if we can see anything. Our Phantom quadcopter, see if we can locate it. But ideally, the biggest fix would be just to make sure the thing works, and then, because then in theory this will transmit all the way to landing, and then we would know where it is. So that would be the idea. So could you launch that payload with a few party balloons? You could. The tough thing with party balloons is they don't really stretch very much. So I mean, you could, but the hard part is either, well, it would either break in a hurry, or it would, or worse, it would not break and it would just fly forever. So the party balloons are a lot less predictable as far as when they will break or if they will break to come back down. But it is light enough that it could potentially fly on a party balloon. So, or at least a couple. You probably couldn't do it on one. You probably have to have a couple together. But those, I mean, the little tiny balloons that we used for Overlook Horizon 10, they're actually super inexpensive. It was like $10 for that flight. So, so those flights are, those balloons are inexpensive. Inexpensive enough where the balloon is not really much of a concern. So, all right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm going to head out. I appreciate everybody hanging around, watching for today. It looks like successful SpaceX launch today. Make sure you're subscribed here. So, follow us on Twitter. We'll have some more updates on Overlook Horizon 11, which is coming out soon. We're just waiting on good weather for it. That will launch ASAP, and that will have this payload, the one behind me here, the big one with the cameras on it. That's going on Overlook Horizon 11. That will be the next flight coming up, hopefully in a week or two, depending on weather. We're just waiting on a good weather pattern for us to launch in so we have a good landing. So make sure you're following along. You'll see that flight, and then we'll actually have some footage, hopefully, if everything goes well. We'll have some footage from the cameras on board that we can share. So yeah, definitely let us, or follow along with us. We'll have another flight coming up soon. And then we got obviously the hashtag Space Lobster flight coming up in probably May time frame. All depends on how successful these first couple ones are, but this will be, plan is sometime in May this guy will go up. Maybe what we do, so next Falcon Heavy scheduled for June 13th. Maybe we try to do it right before Falcon Heavy. I don't know, we'll see. But anyways, so that's kind of the plan. So follow along with us, and if you're really feeling generous, we are a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. And you can go to overlookhorizon.com/donate if you feel like making a donation to our nonprofit. Our main goal is really, we're trying to get kids and even adults into science and technology, get them more interested into things like SpaceX, even doing their own science experiments at home, like these high-altitude weather balloons. You can do things like that, or even if it's not a high-altitude weather balloon, doing anything with Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's our big goal. So if you like that and you like following along with us, feel free to send along a tax-deductible donation. If you're in the U.S., it's 100% tax-deductible because we are a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. So anyways, there's my sales pitch for you. But I appreciate everybody at least hanging out with us for today's SpaceX launch. Join us on Monday for the next SpaceX launch. That'll be CRS 14, and we'll be covering that one as well coming up. But for today, I'm going to sign off. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, everybody. Hashtag Space Lobster. Everybody have a good rest of the day. Thanks, guys. Take care.